Why some people in their 80s feel 20 years younger. I have met people who carry themselves with the energy of someone much younger, while others seem weighed down by time itself. It makes you wonder why some people feel old long before their time, while others defy expectations and feel decades younger than the age written on their birth certificate. I have lived long enough to see both sides of this, and I can tell you that feeling young has little to do with luck and everything to do with the choices we make every single day. When I was a young man, I used to think that aging was like a slow, unstoppable train. You get older, you slow down, you ache, you forget things, and then one day you just fade away. That was the story I believed, because that was what everyone around me told me. But then I met an old man, probably in his 80s, who carried himself with the spirit of someone in his 40s. He had a firm handshake, a strong voice, and a mind as sharp as a blade. He laughed like he had all the time in the world. I remember asking him how he stayed so youthful. He leaned in, smiled, and said, "It is all in the way you live." At first, I thought he meant eating right and exercising. And sure, that plays a role. But as the years passed, I realized he meant something deeper. He was talking about the way you think, the way you see yourself, and the way you engage with life. People who feel young in their 80s do not sit around thinking about how old they are. They do not obsess over the things they cannot do anymore. Instead, they focus on what they can do. They wake up with a sense of purpose. They look forward to things, no matter how small. They do not spend time regretting the past. They do not dwell on aches and pains. I have seen many people grow old before their time, and it always starts in the mind. They stop learning. They stop being curious. They stop making new memories and start living only in the past. They let themselves become prisoners of routine, doing the same things over and over until life becomes nothing more than a slow march toward the inevitable. They speak only of what used to be instead of what could be. Their world shrinks because they let it shrink. They convince themselves they are too old for this or that, and so they stop trying. That is when the real aging begins. One of the biggest reasons some people feel young at 80 is because they do not accept aging as a decline. They see it as a stage of life, not the end of life. They stay engaged with the world. They keep up with the times. They learn new skills. I knew a woman who took up painting at 75. By the time she was 80, she was selling her artwork at local fairs. Another man I knew started learning a new language when he was in his 70s, just because he wanted to challenge himself. These people never told themselves it was too late. I have also noticed that the people who feel younger are the ones who keep moving. They do not sit around all day complaining about their backs or their knees. They take walks. They stretch. They dance even if they are not very good at it. They understand that a body in motion stays in motion. Once you stop moving, it gets harder and harder to start again. Then there is the matter of attitude. People who feel young do not carry bitterness in their hearts. They do not waste time holding grudges. They do not sit around complaining about how things were better in the old days. Instead, they focus on the good that still exists. They laugh often. They find joy in small things. They surround themselves with people who bring them energy instead of those who drain it. They choose to live rather than just exist. Another thing I have learned is that people who feel young in their 80s take care of their health long before they reach that age. They do not wait until their bodies start breaking down to start paying attention. They eat real food. They do not fill themselves with things that make them sluggish and sick. They respect their bodies, knowing that what they do in their 40s and 50s will determine how they feel in their 70s and 80s. But the most important thing, the one thing that separates those who feel young from those who feel old, is that they have a reason to wake up every morning. I have met people in their 80s who still have goals. They still have things they want to do, places they want to see, people they want to meet. They do not see themselves as finished. They are not waiting for life to end. They are still living it. If you want to feel young when you are old, start now. Do not wait until you are 60 or 70 to decide you want to live differently. Keep learning. Keep moving. Keep laughing. Stay curious. Find reasons to get up in the morning. Let go of what does not serve you. Forgive quickly. Love deeply. Never stop believing that there is still something ahead worth reaching for. Age is just a number. The real measure of youth is how you choose to live. How much of aging is physical, and how much of it is the story we tell ourselves about getting older. There are, of course, physical realities that come with aging. The body slows down in some ways. Muscles may not be as strong. Recovery takes longer. Wrinkles appear, hair turns gray, and joints might not be as forgiving as they once were. These things happen whether we want them to or not. But here is where the story comes in. Some people take these changes as a signal to stop trying, to start seeing themselves as old. They notice a little stiffness in the morning and decide they are too old to move the way they used to. They see a few wrinkles and think their best years are behind them. They assume that because they have lived many years, their time for excitement, passion, and adventure is over. And that is when they truly start aging. Not because their bodies demand it, but because their minds surrender to the idea of being old. On the other hand, there are those who refuse to let a number define them. They may feel a little soreness, but they keep moving. They may see gray hair in the mirror, but they do not let it dictate how they see themselves. They do not obsess over what they used to be able to do. Instead, they find new things to love, new challenges to take on, new reasons to wake up with a sense of purpose. They are not pretending they are young. They simply do not believe that aging means stopping. And because they do not believe it, their bodies follow their minds. They stay active, they stay engaged, and they stay young in ways that go beyond the physical. I have known people who started new careers in their 70s. I have seen 80-year-olds learning to play the piano for the first time, taking up painting, traveling to places they always dreamed of seeing. These are not people who had perfect health or an easy life. They were simply people who refused to let the world tell them they were too old. Meanwhile, I have also known people who gave up long before their bodies ever forced them to. They convinced themselves that aging meant sitting on the sidelines, and so they did. They watched life instead of living it. And that, more than any physical change, was what made them truly old. The truth is, our bodies respond to the way we think about ourselves. If you believe you are frail, you will move less, and moving less makes you weaker. If you believe you are too old to learn, your brain will stop growing and adapting. If you believe your best days are behind you, you will stop looking for new experiences, and your world will shrink. But if you believe that life is still unfolding, that there are still things to do and see, your body will do its best to keep up with your mind. Science has shown that people who stay mentally and physically active age differently than those who do not. But long before science proved it, wise people already knew it. Aging is not just about years. It is about energy, about curiosity, about the willingness to stay engaged with life. I have met older people who are more alive than some of the young. I have also met young people who seem weighed down by time, even though they have barely lived. The difference is not in the body. It is in the story they tell themselves about life, about what is possible, about what is still ahead. Some people grow old at 40 because they believe they have seen and done everything worth seeing. Others stay young at 80 because they wake up every day still excited to learn something new. It is easy to blame the body for aging. It gives us an excuse to slow down, to stop trying, to settle into routines that feel safe but slowly drain the spark out of life. But when you meet someone who has defied that, someone who has chosen to live fully no matter their age, you realize that the body follows the mind far more than we give it credit for. I have seen it with my own eyes. People who keep moving, keep laughing, keep challenging themselves, they do not just look younger. They feel younger. They live younger. And it is not because they were born lucky. It is because they never let their story turn into one of decline. Is it possible that feeling young in old age has more to do with unlearning limiting beliefs than adopting new habits? From the moment we are young, we are fed a script about aging. We hear phrases like, "You will understand when you are older," or "Wait until you hit 40." It is all downhill from there. We see movies where older characters are either wise but frail, or worse, completely out of touch with the modern world. We are surrounded by jokes about aching joints, forgetfulness, and slowing down. These ideas sink into our minds long before we ever approach old age. By the time we do, they have already shaped our expectations. The problem is, we tend to live out what we expect. When a person believes aging means decline, they start to shrink their world little by little. They say no to things they once would have said yes to. They convince themselves certain experiences are for the young. They let go of dreams they still have time to chase, simply because they have accepted a version of aging that is more about limitation than possibility. But then, there are those who seem to defy time. The ones who still travel, who still take on new challenges, who laugh as easily at 80 as they did at 20. What sets them apart? It is not perfect health. It is not just good genetics. It is a refusal to accept the idea that age dictates what is possible. It is the willingness to question, to unlearn, to reject the script society handed them about what it means to grow older. They do not see age as a countdown. They see it as a continuation. They do not tell themselves they are too old to try something new. They ask themselves why not. Think about how many times people limit themselves without realizing it. Someone in their 40s may love to dance but stops because they think they are too old for that kind of thing. Someone in their 50s may dream of switching careers but assumes that ship has sailed. Someone in their 60s may want to travel but tells themselves it is too late to start now. None of these beliefs are true. They are just ideas picked up along the way, often absorbed from a culture that glorifies youth and treats aging as something to be feared rather than embraced. The people who feel young well into old age are the ones who refuse to buy into those limitations. Instead of believing they are too old, they believe they are still capable. Instead of focusing on what has changed, they focus on what is still possible. There is something powerful about unlearning. It is harder than learning something new because it requires breaking down ideas that feel deeply ingrained. But once those limiting beliefs are gone, a person realizes how much of their world was shaped by assumptions rather than reality. They see that they never had to stop doing the things they loved. They never had to shrink their dreams to fit a certain age. They never had to settle into a smaller life just because the years kept adding up. The body may change, but the mind is what determines whether a person still feels alive. Imagine two people, both 70 years old. One has accepted that they are old. They stop challenging themselves, stop exploring, stop doing the things that once made them feel alive. The other refuses to see age as a limit. They continue to learn, to seek out adventure, to stay curious about the world. Physically, they may have some of the same struggles. But mentally, one is still growing, while the other has already given up. It is never the number that makes a person old. It is the belief that they have nothing left to become. Of course, there are physical realities to aging. The body changes. There may be limitations that did not exist before, but even those are shaped by mindset. The person who believes they are fragile will move less, and moving less will make them weaker. The person who believes they can still be strong will push themselves, and as a result, they will be stronger. The body listens to what the mind tells it. Science has shown that those who stay mentally engaged, who stay physically active, who keep a sense of purpose, age differently than those who do not. But it all starts with what they believe is possible. Unlearning limiting beliefs does not mean pretending age does not exist. It does not mean ignoring the changes that come with time. It means refusing to let those changes define what is still possible. It means questioning every assumption about what is too late or too old or not meant for someone your age. It means replacing those thoughts with new ones. What if age is not a barrier but a doorway? What if the years bring wisdom, confidence, and self-assurance that make new adventures even more rewarding? What if instead of fearing time, people embraced it as the space where they still get to create, explore, and experience? The truth is, feeling young is not about chasing youth. It is about refusing to let go of curiosity, energy, and passion for life. It is about understanding that the only real difference between a young person and an old one is whether they still believe in their own potential. The ones who feel young at any age are not the ones who desperately try to hold on to their youth. They are the ones who never let go of the belief that life is still happening, that they are still becoming, that there is still more to do, to see, to feel. It is not that new habits are not useful. They can help keep the body strong and the mind sharp. But all the good habits in the world mean nothing if they are built on a foundation of limiting beliefs. A person who exercises but believes they are too old to really live will not feel young, no matter how fit they are. A person who eats well but constantly tells themselves they are past their prime will not feel vibrant, no matter how healthy they are. It is not about what is added. It is about what is removed. The weight of all the stories about what aging is supposed to mean. The fears about time running out. The belief that certain experiences belong to the past. Let go of those, and suddenly, age is no longer something to fight against. It just becomes part of the journey. What silent fears keep people from living fully as they age, and how do those fears manifest in their bodies and minds? One of the deepest fears that takes hold as people age is the fear of becoming invisible. In youth, the world seems to reflect back energy, curiosity, and potential. People feel seen, valued, and heard. But as the years pass, many start to notice that society shifts its attention elsewhere. Conversations exclude them. Trends feel foreign. Their opinions seem to carry less weight. This fear of irrelevance leads to quiet withdrawal. A person who once spoke up in meetings now hesitates. Someone who once loved fashion starts dressing in ways that blend in rather than stand out. Social gatherings become less frequent, not because the invitations stop, but because the fear of not belonging takes over. The mind, weighed down by this fear, begins to reinforce the belief that fading into the background is inevitable. And then the body follows. Shoulders slump. Eyes lose their spark. Movement becomes slower, not because of age but because of an unconscious retreat from the world. The fear of physical decline is another silent weight people carry. The body does change, but fear makes those changes feel more dramatic than they are. A single ache becomes proof of weakness. A forgotten name becomes a sign of cognitive decline. People start moving less, afraid of injury. They avoid new challenges, assuming they are not strong enough. Over time, this fear of decline speeds up the very thing they are trying to avoid. Muscles weaken not from age itself, but from lack of use. The brain slows not because it must, but because it is not being challenged. The body listens to the mind. When the mind believes in fragility, the body follows suit. Fear turns into self-fulfilling prophecy. The difference between someone who stays strong and someone who deteriorates often has less to do with genetics and more to do with whether they believe in their own vitality. Loneliness is a fear that creeps in quietly but carries heavy consequences. People fear losing those they love, fear becoming a burden, fear ending up alone. To protect themselves, they sometimes pull away first. They avoid making deep connections because loss feels inevitable. They hesitate to reach out because they do not want to seem needy. They convince themselves that younger generations are too busy for them, that their presence is no longer wanted. This fear leads to isolation. And isolation changes the brain. Studies have shown that loneliness accelerates cognitive decline, increases stress levels, and even shortens lifespan. The body responds with fatigue, tension, and a weakened immune system. The mind becomes more anxious, more prone to negative thinking. A person who fears loneliness often creates the very circumstances that make it a reality. Perhaps one of the heaviest fears people carry is the fear of regret. Looking back on life, people wonder if they made the right choices. Did they spend too much time working and not enough time with family? Did they let fear stop them from chasing dreams? Did they waste too much energy on things that never really mattered? This fear, if left unresolved, manifests in bitterness, in sadness, in a restless feeling of wanting to go back and do it all differently. The body holds on to this regret. It appears in tense shoulders, in a clenched jaw, in a heaviness that lingers without explanation. The mind replays memories with a sharpness that stings rather than soothes. The irony is that fear of regret often leads to more regret. People hesitate to take risks in the present because they are too busy mourning the past. Instead of embracing the time they still have, they spend it grieving the time they lost. The fears of aging are not just mental. They shape the body, the habits, the very energy a person carries. But there is another truth. Just as fear changes the body, so does courage. A person who fights against irrelevance by staying engaged, speaking up, and embracing change walks differently. They stand taller. They move with confidence. Their energy draws others in. A person who refuses to let fear of decline take over continues to challenge themselves. They try new things. They push their limits. Their body stays stronger not just because of effort, but because of belief. A person who fights against loneliness reaches out. They initiate. They show up. Their brain stays sharp because it is engaged. Their body stays healthier because it is connected to others. A person who lets go of regret understands that the past cannot be changed, but the present is still theirs to shape. They release the weight they have been carrying. Their face softens. Their steps become lighter. Aging does not have to be a slow retreat. It does not have to be a process of giving up, giving in, or growing smaller. The fears that come with it are real, but they do not have to win. The body is always listening to the mind. When the mind chooses confidence over doubt, curiosity over hesitation, connection over isolation, the body follows. People are not meant to fade quietly into the background of their own lives. They are meant to keep living, fully, boldly, without apology. No matter how many years they have seen, there is still more to see, more to do, more to become. And that choice, that possibility, is always theirs to claim. If you liked today's discussion, don't forget to like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to stay updated with every video we release. And yes, don't forget to share your experiences and thoughts in the comments. Every comment is special to us. Your feedback helps us improve further. We'll continue to meet you in every new video on this channel, so until next time, take care.